Dr. Ward, I would just like to ask you a first question, existential, if you like. Why was the John Paul Academy for Human Life and the Family set up when the Pontifical Academy for Life already exists?
Well, Father, it was set up to revive and unfold anew the beauty of the Church's timeless vision of the splendor of the truth on human life and the family. If I can develop that a little, our Academy exists to perpetuate, without any compromise, the goals of the original Pontifical Academy of Life as set up by St. John Paul in 1994. And the Pontifical Academy for Life was given the task by St. John Paul to study and provide information and training about the principal problems of law and biomedicine pertaining to the promotion and protection of life, especially insofar as this is concerned with the relationship with Christian morality and the directives of the Church's magisterium. Well, that's a little bit long-winded, but fundamentally, it was for the interdisciplinary study and defense of human life in all of its stages.
And when exactly was this John Paul II Academy for Human Life and the Family? When was it exactly set up?
Well, it was set up on the John Paul II Academy for Human Life and the Family was set up on some 33 years later, on the 28th of October, 2017. And
by whom? I mean, you didn't found it on your own, I know.
No, absolutely not at all. It really was, in some ways, it was inspired by people of very, very long experience who had been in the Pontifical Academy for Life. It was inspired by, set up by a group of faithful lay Catholic academics, all of whom had been uncompromising and all of whom had been outspoken defenders of Catholic doctrine. And all of whom had been deleted, whose membership, the membership of all of these people had been deleted by the Vatican.
Mm-hmm. Well, an academy is for academics. Which academics can be member of this academy?
People
from now on.
People who are unequivocally committed to the goals of the Pontifical Academy of Life, as it was formulated by St. John Paul, and particularly as it was formulated in its original statutes and oath.
Yes, so there is an oath at the beginning.
Well, yes, there is. We have a vow, which I will deal with, if I may, towards the end of the interview.
That's great, because that seems in the present context a very important thing. I understand that the need for authentic continuity regarding the issues regarding life. But your new academy is also entitled For the Family. Why? Isn't that a bit too much at the same time?
Well, you might argue that that's a very great deal of work. But in 1981, Pope St. John Paul founded the Pontifical Council for the Family. And I was quite heavily involved one way and another with that. 1 year later, in 1982, he set up the Pontifical Institute for Marriage and the Family. And we have felt that it's precisely to provide the authentic continuity on the family which is so inextricably connected to life that we have chosen to take up the study of both marriage and the family in addition to human life. And we do this in obedience of faith, because we unequivocally submit to the entire deposit of faith and moral doctrine as given to us by the Church. And here I would just cite particular magisterial documents: Humani Vitae, Familiaris Consortio, Veritatis Splendor, Evangelium Vitae. There are many, many others.
That's an impressive list of Latin names for important documents. Anybody slightly interested in the Catholic faith should know about that. But with that impressive list, isn't this like a little bit like reinventing the wheel?
No, you can't reinvent the wheel. It's the same wheel. Mm-hmm. It's the same wheel. Perhaps, Father, might I suggest that perhaps a better question for me might be, might there be significant forces in the Vatican distancing themselves from the teachings of the Church on life, marriage, and the family? That's a different. No, that is not the wheel.
No. Well, what would cause you to worry in particular?
Oh, a very, very great deal.
Some examples, maybe?
Well,
without pretending to be comprehensive, some examples?
Well, I have seen lists that went on for 100 items, but I take your point. Tragically, it's just too easy to give examples. For example, one member of the Pontifical Academy for Life, now, someone who's a member now, I avoid names. He claims that the Bible calls for abortion in some cases of rape and disability. Another of these people calls for the Church's teaching on sexuality in the family to be thoroughly reconsidered in the light of Pope Francis's exhortation Amoris Laetitia. It doesn't stop. Another asserts that contraception, and this is a senior cleric, that contraception is even morally mandatory under certain circumstances. I repeat, contraception is maybe morally mandatory under certain circumstances, and that responsible parenthood can oblige a married couple to use artificial birth control. But it doesn't stop. Another states that it is a rather rigid interpretation of the Church's teaching to consider all sexual intercourse outside of a validly contracted marriage as being licentious. You can have sex outside of marriage as far as this character is concerned. Another important example, and this is an important example to me because my particular area of interest over very many years has been the protection of the parent, the primary educator. So another very important example would have been in 2016, when the Pontifical Council for the Family under Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia published the meeting point, a course of effective sexual education for young people, which bypasses parents as the primary educators of the children. And it was very much in keeping with Pope Francis's call for, I quote, the need for sex education to be addressed by educational institutions. Such a program violates the rights of parents who are in the repeated teachings of St. John Paul, of Pope Benedict, and for me, perhaps most poignantly of all, of Pope Pius XI, all of whom spoke on the primary educator, the primary educator and protector of their children.
Can you be more specific about this? Why do you emphasize Pope Pius XI, wasn't it, on the rights?
It was Pope Pius XI.
Yes. Why? Why put?
Well, we have to go back a little, but it's still in modern times. In 1937, Pope Pius XI wrote the encyclical Mit brennender Sorge, with burning care, anxiety, in which he denounced the National Socialist government in Germany. He urged Catholic parents whose parental rights were being undermined by Nazi policy not to give up the moral duty to instruct their children, not to give up the moral duty to instruct their children. He wrote, parents have a primary right to the education of their children, of the children God has given them, in the spirit of their faith and according to its prescriptions. Laws, very important word, laws and measures which in school and other situations fail to respect this freedom of the parent go against the natural law and are immoral. Now, Pope Pius XI, he wasn't speaking of now. He wasn't speaking to an audience, a political setup like ours. Pope Pius XI warned the parents of Hitler's Germany, of the concentration camps, of the SS. He wasn't speaking of today's decadent, politically correct, liberal West. He was speaking of terrorism. And he warned those people, those parents, of the consequences of relinquishing their God-given duty. His words are very, very, I use the word poignant, I can use it again. His words are very poignant. And he said to parents, yet do not forget this, none can free you from the responsibility God has placed on you over your children. I repeat, you over your children. None of your oppressors who pretend to relieve you of your duties, people who pretend to relieve you of your duties, can answer for you to the eternal judge when he will ask, where are those I confided to you? May every one of you be able to answer, of them whom you have given me, I have not lost anyone.
So, Dr. Ward, if I understand well, for you, a key in understanding all this is personal responsibility.
Absolutely. It's the only thing that will work. Yes, Vatican officials cannot answer for us as parents at the Last Judgment. For many, I rather fear, it would be quite enough for them to answer for themselves. It's our responsibility as parents to answer for our children and the morality of our acts in educating our children. But both parents, and it's very true, parents and Vatican officials should remember the warning in St. Matthew. Better he that shall scandalize one of these little ones that believe in me, it would be better for him that a millstone should be hanged round his neck and that he should be drowned in the depth of the sea. That is what our Lord said about education.
Yes, that's pretty clear. Did you find many people already who share your concerns? Especially parents.
I think that there is now a vast number of people who are concerned. They may be rather non-specifically concerned, but concerned they are. But there are other very competent, intelligent, well-informed people, serious people, if you like, who share our concern. For example, I would quote Mr. John Smeaton, who was until recently the head of the Society of Protection of Unborn Children in UK and the founder of Voice of the Family in Rome. And John says, a man of vast experience, parents must not be under any illusion. The pontificate of Pope Francis marks the surrender of the Vatican authorities to the worldwide sexual revolution and directly threatens their own children. Another colleague, Mrs. Christine Vollmer of Venezuela, a founding member of the Vatican Academy for Life, of the Vatican's Pontifical Academy for Life, forgive me, as well as the founder of the Latin American Alliance for Life. And she is also the vice president of our new academy. And she writes, and she was thinking of the sex education program, of which I just discussed. And she writes, it is quite tragic that the Pontifical Council for the Family should bypass the parents when this has been the problem that has brought on the adolescent sexual problems from which we are suffering. Now, very happily, you ask, is there opposition? Yes, there is opposition. Because very happily, this sex education program produced by the Pontifical Council for the Family was withdrawn under pressure from parents. We must not think that we will fail. It is the absence of our efforts that fails. It does work.
It's fantastic, of course, to hear that. You mentioned Archbishop Vincenzo Paglia. Who is he exactly? His name rings a bell.
Yes, well, he has become rather well known. He is the president of the Pontifical Academy for Life and Grand Chancellor of the John Paul Pontifical Theological Institute for Marriage and Family Sciences. He was previously, between 2012 and 2016, president of the Pontifical Council of the Family. In 2007, when he was the Bishop of Terni in Italy, he commissioned the painting of a huge homoerotic mural in the cathedral, in his cathedral, facing the Blessed Sacrament, facing our Lord. It is appalling. Catholic parents worldwide have rightly asked, why was this man put in charge of a prototype of sex education aimed at Catholic children throughout the world? Why was he put at the helm of the Pontifical Council for the Family? And why is he at the head of the Pontifical Academy for Life?
So far, when you talk about this struggle for the family, for life, it is within a certain context, within a certain part of the Vatican that is actually specialized in this, in these issues. Is it confined to Vatican departments dealing with life in a family, or does this undermining of Catholic doctrine, well, does it happen elsewhere within the Vatican?
Emphatically, no.
You mean it's not confined? It's not confined.
Not confined. No.
Small niche.
No. A most egregious example of this is the appointment by Pope Francis of Professor Jeffrey Sachs as an ordinary member of the Pontifical Academy for Social Sciences. Sachs is an outspoken advocate of global population control and the architect of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. These goals call for universal access to something called reproductive health services. This is a term understood by the UN and by many governments as a euphemism for abortion and contraception. To be specific, target 6 of goal number 3 states, by 2030, that's not a long time away, especially in view of what's going on in Glasgow. By 2030, to ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive health services, including family planning, information and education, and the integration of reproductive health into national strategies and programs. I repeat, 2030, integration, reproductive health into national strategies, think just how wide-ranging that might be, and programs. In September 2019, during an in-flight press conference on his return from an apostolic visit to Africa, His Holiness Pope Francis said that the faithful have, quote, a duty, quote, to obey, quote, international organizations, end quote, such as the United Nations and the European Union. But Father, fundamentally natural law is written by God in every human heart. It teaches us what it is to be a human being created in the image and likeness of God. And it is the unchangeable teaching of our Holy Mother, the Church. Father, we have no duty to obey the UN and the EU, most emphatically when it contradicts natural law. So in the light of all of this, we academicians have felt compelled to form the John Paul Academy for Human Life and the Family in order, as I've said, to revive and unfold anew the beauty. Much of what I've been speaking about is not beautiful. It's ugly. It's evil. It's anti-Catholic. We want to revive and unfold anew the beauty of the Church's vision of the splendor of the truth on human life and the family. That brings joy.
Dr. Ward, from now on, how does the Academy propose to unfold anew the beauty of the splendor of truth on human life and the family?
Well, Father, I think the simplest way is to draw your attention to our vow, the vow that all members take on joining the John Paul Academy. I think it's really quite beautiful. And I'll highlight some particular points.
Yeah, but I would like you to answer that, because people taking vows, it's always something that I admire, especially when they're risky.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. I think they're highly risky because this vow is totally countercultural.
It is, yeah.
Totally countercultural. It's not. It would be completely opposed to the cultural Marxism which is being imposed throughout the West. Mm-hmm. So, yes, but what I'd like to do is to draw your attention, because it's a little bit long, to particular points, but I'm very happy to make the vow available to you for people to study and it may be of interest to them.
Yes.
It may bring us new academicians. One of the first things that we say is we are defenders of life. We respect the human species independent of age or infirmity. That in itself is a very large topic. We believe in the dignity of life. Therefore, we're against all forms of anti-life acts or practices, such as contraceptives and abortion, and many other things. We wish to perpetuate the Hippocratic tradition and conform our practices to the eternal moral law, not the ephemeral nonsense which is being proposed. We fight against anti-life and anti-family evils with respect to the dignity and sacredness of every human person made in the likeness of God.
Dr. Ward, I've been observing pro-lifers closely, and I just want to ask you a question which might be a bit provocative, but could it be that some people that are active in the pro-life movement, while defending the sacredness of life, actually forget something very Catholic? That means, I mean, the sacredness of marriage.
Oh, very much, very, very much so. And very much so. And this, I think, in many ways, this question in many ways underlies the attack on life. The attack on marriage and contraception underlay abortion, and on it goes. But we academicians believe that marriage is a lifelong community of life and love between one man and one woman, sanctioned by God, open to conception. And we see children as great gifts. We defend God-given sexuality, procreative and unitive. And I do underline that order, procreative and unitive. And we are against all forms of mutilations to change this. We believe in the rights of parents as primary educators of their children. We believe it is the duty to serve in freedom the physical, intellectual, spiritual, and well-being of our children. You speak of the vow. We vow to support the proper aid, proper aid to parents in order for them to live their parental vocation, their parental mission. We will support them against any actions by states, for example, the European Union or the United Nations, geopolitically, or more locally, schools or local communities, which endeavor to obstruct the fundamental good of parents' rights. Father, I'm grateful to you for your time. I have endeavored to give you a taste of what we are doing to revive and unfold anew the beauty of the Church's timeless vision on the splendor of truth and human life and the family, upon which our civilization and our eternal salvation depends. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your hospitality to our new academy, and perhaps you and your viewers will remember our work in your prayers. Thank you, Father.
Tom, I'm the one to thank you because we have agreed. People watching this will be happy to hear that we agreed that I would be talking to more members of your academy in the future. And this is only the first interview, because we are going to have a whole series of interesting interviews with members of this new academy. And this was a fantastic kickoff. And I'm sure people will be looking forward to the next interviews in this series. Thank you for being with us, Tom.
Thank you very much, Father. And may God bless your new apostolate.
Thank you very much. God bless.
And you.